when Governor Newsom took office a couple of years ago, one of his number one priorities was building more housing. He's talked about the housing crisis, homelessness, and he had this goal of building millions of homes a year. And we've fallen way short of that. So can you just kind of run us through the process of, let's say I'm a landowner in Rocklin. I just bought 100 acres in Rocklin. Like, how would I go about, getting that ready, to zone and build homes? And I guess how long would that take? Like, what's your first step?
Well, your first step is meeting with staff and sort of doing this pre-application meeting where you give them as much information as you have at that time, which could be architectural drawings, but by that point you're already 6 figures into the project, you know. But you can have this meeting before you really spend a lot of money and just sort of figure out what's going on. Is the zoning right? What kind of zoning changes do you need? And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is right now, because of the new housing elements that all these cities are doing through everywhere in the state, a lot of people are changing the minimum zonings of areas from maybe, let's say, 20 units an acre to 22 units an acre to accommodate the requirements that they're getting from the state. But that requires a rezone.
Wow.
So that means that in the city will process those rezones, but that builds in opposition to the project before it even happens, before there's even a project there. But once you have that pre-application meeting, then you go out, you hire all these consultants and arborists to check the trees, to do the EIR, depending if it needs an EIR, at least some kind of environmental document. All these studies, sound studies, greenhouse gas studies. And by the time you've actually brought a project ready to sort of be submitted to just staff, you're 6 figures in. And then staff, there's going to be months of back and forth with staff on all sorts of things that we probably don't have time to talk about, but I can give you some examples later. But then after that back and forth and they sort of come to some kind of agreement, then only then it goes to the planning commission, and then depending on the zoning to the city council. So you're talking about a 1-year process if you're lucky,
with staff just kind of ironing it out.
Yeah, exactly, before it ever gets to the council. You're talking about a 1-year process. Like I said, the one project's been on Sierra College 4 years. It's a big project though, and it's a lot of rezones and things like that, a lot of variances. So, but still 4 years is kind of a long time.
Yeah, like I remember, because I grew up in Elk Grove right before the big housing boom, and I remember you'd get 4 houses to an acre, or maybe 6. Now you're seeing 20 some units per acre.
Those are for apartments, really. Right. Actually, in most cities right now, we have a 22 plus is sort of our minimum for multifamily. But now you're really seeing cities go for 30. I think we've sort of agreed to 26 units, but that came from the development community. This is what pencils out in Rocklin, is 26 units an acre. We can't do 30 units an acre. And once you start getting over 30, you're talking about steel. And then that just changes everything. Well, in a city like Rocklin, the rents don't meet the threshold to actually do, 4 or 5 story projects, right. So you're sort of limited to 3-story projects. There are a lot of issues about developing in a city, a suburb, that really don't apply to Sacramento. So you see sort of these policies coming out that are designed for Sacramento and around transit and all those sorts of things. It is nothing for a suburban town, So as far as I think the governor has a good goal, but the cities we don't deliver housing product. I've outlined a lot of issues that need to be streamlined, and I would be more than happy to help anybody streamline a lot of those a lot of those things. But why is there there's no focus, I don't think, on actually getting the people who are putting in the capital to build the projects. That I think is a major thing for the suburbs, not so much a city where you're going to have people move in and pay high rents.
Right.